So on this TGI Monday, we're talking about near-death experiences. Are they real, or is it just our brains going a bit weird?
Hello and welcome to TGI Monday. This week we've got a question from Hazel. He sent this in via email. She says, when someone dies but gets brought back to life, quite often they will tell of seeing past family members or angels or shining lights, even God himself. Do the panel think it's just their mind losing the plot, or have they truly seen these things? So we've got, as you see, quite an array of books about near-death experiences and similar things here. Howell, I believe all of these belong to you.
No. No. Some of them, one of them is mine and the rest are my wife's, I think.
Okay, so you've obviously done some thinking about this before. Tell us what you think about those kind of experiences.
There's two things with it, really. I think the first thing is, it's from a scientific point of view. It's very difficult to say anything. There's interestingly, a article published in Resuscitation, the journal there, where they assessed a pile of near-death experiences. And what they found was that people were aware of things when they were outside of their body, and then they came back in again. So, but it's very difficult to actually tell anything scientifically about it. I think what I find fascinating with it, especially this guy, this lady, she had a stroke. She was a neuroscientist and she had a stroke.
Right.
And it was really quite funny on her TED talk, but she goes like, I'm having a stroke. How interesting. I'm having a stroke.
So she's trying to analyse it while she's having
That's right,
it.
yeah. Wow. And I think what really comes out with these sorts of things is that we haven't got a clue about what consciousness is.
Yes.
We really haven't.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that struck me when I was thinking about this question is, you know, we have all sorts of things where our mind does extraordinary things. I mean, so most of us dream, not necessarily every night, but occasionally. And our mind does extraordinary things when we're dreaming, doesn't it? It can persuade you that you're a potato, or, you know, that you're looking down on yourself, or, you know, people who have comas and then come round from them often talk about strange things that their mind has been doing. So it's not necessarily that people are making those things up at all, but actually, you know, it could be, there's that famous line in Harry Potter, isn't it, where Dumbledore says to Harry, of course it's in your mind, but that doesn't mean it's not true. And I wonder if that's what's going on with some of these things.
I've been listening to a lot of surgeons talking about this, and some of them are really, really interesting. And they speak to their patients who they've been operating on and who passed away on the operating table, and then they come back and they find that the person who passed away, who was completely gone, is able to provide information of what took place after they passed away.
That's what that journal said.
Things they shouldn't know.
Yeah.
Right.
And so. And we have stories that go back even to the ancient Egyptians that are like this. Now, I don't come from a science background like you, so I can't assess it in that way. But, you know, if a surgeon who I'm willing to allow to operate on me in the most intimate way is going to say things, if I can trust them to slice open parts of my body to fix me, then if they are seeing this happening in front of them, I'm going to take that reasonably seriously. And certainly I want to affirm people who are having these kind of experiences as they're being genuine. I want to just caveat it slightly, though, is that I've met a lot of people who their mind doesn't work well, either through mental health issues or because they've been taking mind-altering drugs, or just because they're sick. You know, when you're unwell, sometimes your mind doesn't function perfectly, and when you're at the point...
We should note, shouldn't we, that Howell is not very well this morning.
No. I had a dream about Donald Trump last night.
Oh, well.
You voted for him.
Don't share
Whoa!
Don't share that with us. Sorry, carry on,
It's not
Dan.
near death, though, is it?
No.
Sorry, Dan, carry on.
The point is, I'm trying to make is that at that point of death, your mind is at its most unwell. And so you can't necessarily expect it to function normally. And so whilst I affirm what's going on, and I'm perfectly happy that there's a life after death and that you're at that kind of splitting point when you're dying, I'm sure there's something going on. But whether we can read it well from people's experiences, I don't know, because I don't know the connection between the consciousness and what they're receiving through their brain and what's happening next.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think the thing is as well, Laura, is that when I did sensory systems a long time ago in university, there's a case where a man bashed the back of his head, right? And when he woke up in the morning, he saw his wife as a top hat.
Good.
Right? No, think about it, right? Yeah. Think about it, right?
There's a connection that's...
Yeah, it's because even though the light that went into his eyes and
his brain's interpreting it
differently.
Yeah.
So the thing is, when it comes to what consciousness is and how we actually interpret the world around us, it's not just chemistry. There's something else there. Yeah. And I think there's a brilliant YouTube channel called Inspiring Philosophy, and if you're a real nerd, you can go on that. And he's got some really interesting videos about how quantum mechanics and other things like that influence biology, and how consciousness is something more than chemistry. And I think that's something that needs to be thought about, really.
Zoe, what's your feeling about all this?
Well, totally agreeing that there's so much that we don't know and that science doesn't tell us at this point, that actually this is one of those things where if we try and come up with a system for, well, the Bible says this, so it must be that, we'll be contradicted in every possible way. But there are so many fascinating stories, and actually I love the mystery of all of this. I've been reading a book by a woman called Hope Price, who some years back decided, she was married to a vicar, but I don't know whether that's relevant or not, but she decided to try and collect as many stories as she could about people's experiences of angels. And this is something I don't think we talk about enough in church. And reading so many different sorts of accounts where people have experienced what they have come to decide maybe angels. We've got a mate who has had 2 near-death experiences. Well, possibly was dead through 2 very big events in life. And both times, before the paramedics have got to him, he has been held and comforted by a woman he thought was passing by. Same woman, twice. But I was thinking about the transfiguration, when Jesus goes up and basically is talking to dead people on the mountain, Elijah and Moses, and we kind of just see something different. Yeah. Actually, a lot of these people's stories, and I've got one of my own at my mum's bedside, actually. Wow. That moment of just going to another place. I mean, literally at my mum's bedside, there was a moment when she went from being distressed and in pain and to... I'm going to use the word transfigured because I've got another one. And there was just a moment, and she was somewhere else, and she said, "This piece is incredible." Wow. And then came back and was instantly back. So I just think the mystery and the experiences just draw us into a really hopeful
It's
direction.
very interesting to me that in the Bible that there are quite a number of people. I was going to say it's all over the place. It's not all over the place, but there are quite a number of people, aren't there, who die and are brought back to life. And we tend to think of this as quite a modern thing because of modern medicine, but actually that sense of dying and coming back to life is not a new thing. But as I was thinking about it, in all of those cases, we're not really told anything about what that person's experience was. You think of Lazarus coming out of the tomb, and we're not told
St. Stephen.
Okay.
Oh, when he's being stoned.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's true.
What I was going to say, but you're quite right about Stephen, but I was going to say actually what we are told about in some detail is with Jesus himself, not about the time between Friday to Sunday, but about the time where he properly comes back to life on Easter Sunday and that sort of resurrection life. And I just wonder if this sort of thinking about near-death experiences, it is really interesting, and I don't want to dismiss people's experience, but as Christians, what's much more important is the actual death experience and what happens after we actually die, rather than trying to focus on those kind of moments.
But the other thing is as well, Laura, with this one, this lady who had the stroke and things, and she was describing, right, on her TED talk, the stroke that she had and the experience that she had, and that was very similar. I don't have lots of religious experiences. I've only probably had about 2. But what she was describing was very similar to what we experience sometimes in church. That sense of intense peace, that sense of intense where everything makes sense. Yeah. So there's got to be something in it.
We need to finish in a moment. So do you have something to say quickly?
Yeah, only that I don't think I agree with you that what happens at actual death is more important than those near-death moments. I think sometimes we're quite distracted by the end destination, and actually that those glimpses of near-death stuff bring us that hope into today. Okay. So the living and the dying is less separated than we think, I think.
Yeah, helpful. So I think the answer is we don't really know what's going on. Scientists don't really know what's going on. we don't think people are making it up, but our minds and our consciousness are very complicated things that we don't really understand. But thank you for the question, and I hope that's been helpful. Please do feel free to send in comments or thoughts or other questions that you'd like the panel to discuss.
Or let us know your own experience.
Yes.
Great question. It was a great question.
Yeah.
On next week's episode, we talk about how do you deal with negativity and criticism.
That was rubbish.
Simon! He's on form today!
No, I like it.
That was quite good, actually.
I thought you...